One of the things that most gamers of any genre or any platform will tell you is how they could spend countless hours doing nothing but playing video games or tabletop gaming, even so far as to completely neglect sleep. And before anyone asks, yes, this even includes me. I've easily stayed up playing various games till the wee hours of the morning, slept for a few hours, only to get back up and continue slapping buttons or rolling dice. Sure, nowadays it's more of a pain in the ass, what with balancing social life with less gaming people, relationships, jobs, a healthy amount of sleep, and all that fun noise. It eventually got to the point where my core player, Link, and I have pretty much just devised campaigns that were literally just me and him, because everyone else that we've played with has way more going on in their lives than we do. And I am one of those guys that doesn't like to leave people staggering behind in experience, or worse, not knowing what the frick is going on in the story that I've devised. Times like that get a little desperate, sure, but anything to keep the dice rolling is fine with me. One of these first instances I had done so was with my ex-girlfriend from way back in 2007 or 2008, can't recall which. Let's call her Pine. Yeah, that works. We used to one-on-one play D&D because everyone else we played with made things really weird when we were at the table together. Well, more like she did. I could have played a lumbering treefolk and her some kind of tiny halfling or gnome, and her character would still try to hump my stump, if you know what I mean. So eventually she stopped gaming with my friends, but still wanted to game with me. One of these games she rolled up a homebrewed Kitsune Druidess, and I had rocked out a human paladin. At some point during the campaign, my brother had joined in with an Aasimar ranger, because Pine had all but lived with us when she wasn't at college. Plus, my brother was bored and wanted something more than just the usual game I was running with him and Link. I think the characters were roughly level 7 or so, because Pine had prestige into Geomancer. Still did the whole crushing on my character thing, which started being more awkward when her fox-like character suddenly sprouted antlers. A dungeon I was running with this party was an orc-filled sewer we needed to slip through to get into some castle in order to slay some tyrant or some such. It was stupid large for no really good reason, but my brother and I were rip-roaring and ready to game all night long because we drank sugary drinks that have no right to be drank. Pine, on the other hand, decided not to partake, so she was drifting fast asleep. The high point that sent all three of us into a laughing fit that lasted quite a while was a room that I had begun describing as filled with garbage and some nasty, and that's when Pine would suddenly speak up, wobbling back and forth in some sleepy fashion, and stated, "I start digging through for treasure." There was no treasure. This was more or less the garbage and bathroom for the orcs. So in her sleep-addled state, Pine had put this image of a kitsune in a fine kimono just jumping into a pile of refuse and feces. "No, don't have me do that, come on, I'm tired, let's stop," were about her only words, whilst my brother and I were rolling out of our chairs laughing our collective asses off. Eventually Pine would join in on the laughing too, but I'm fairly certain she's hated me to this day, holding her to her words as her actions for her character. Needless to say, every session after, she's made sure to at least be fully aware of what she was saying or doing in character, and have as much energy as she could muster. There are several other times that I know we've played Dungeons & Dragons or video games till the wee hours of the morning as well. That's not even to mention midnight releases. Rock Band was a game me and the guys, Jim, Carl, and such, had gotten. We played for what I swear was 3 days straight, playing the same songs over and over again and not giving a damn because it was awesome to be in a band. But the second longest game I want to say we had played all together was while playing in the massive super dungeon that I mentioned before in my Missed Maxed Characters video, the world's largest dungeon. As is on the cover, it is literally a massive dungeon, the largest I know of, that's supposed to take characters from levels 1 to 20 while facing off against every monster in the core monster manual for Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, with some minor exceptions. Yes, even the Tarrasque is in the world's largest dungeon. There were some additional guidelines to the dungeon in the book as well, like how summon spells didn't work the same because, say for some small points where you could get out of the dungeon, you could only teleport or be teleported into or summoned into the dungeon, but not leave after. Not even through teleport or plane shift. Druids were fairly screwed because there was very few instances of nature for them to commune with, and even fewer beasts that they could logically obtain as an animal companion, thanks to, being a dungeon. Wizards as well were pretty damn screwed. Spells weren't going to be something every monster had, so most of the spells that they would get were from leveling up and jotting down in their spell book from scrolls. Despite these guidelines though, with me as the dungeon master, I ran through as much of the world's largest dungeon as I could, with Carl, Jim, my brother, Dylan, and Link, though Link swears he doesn't remember any of this, which is reasonable, because I don't even remember what our characters were at the time of this session. I just know who was there. Anyways, I seem to remember that we started around 5 or 6 p.m. This was kind of planned out as no one had work or school the next day. We bought 2 24 packs of Mountain Dew, a couple of pizzas, and a boatload of snacks. We played through many of the first regions of the map, even U-turned when we found that one of the regions was way above our pay grade. When a character died, we'd let them come up with a new one and kept playing while as they were rolling up the new character. Eventually, we'd lift the blinds of the window and Carl said, "Oh crap, it's 8 a.m. After a little while of discussing and realizing how tired we all suddenly were, we all agreed to sleep for a little while, then continue playing the world's largest dungeon. Here's the nuts thing though, the world's largest dungeon isn't meant to just power through in one sitting, because it's literally 600 pages of player killing goodness. It is meant as a distraction for a group of college students to sit down and play for 4 hours a week till they finished 4 years of school. And there was me and the guys, thinking to ourselves, yeah, we can make it at least 1/4 of the way through this in one sitting. Scary part was that after waking up and restocking on snacks and soda, we nearly did, was one of the best ideas we had in our youth, and I don't remember any of it except for needing to sleep a good portion of the way through. And honestly, something I realized only recently is that some of my best ideas come out from my head and onto paper or keyboard when I'm rather sleep-addled as well. Hells, I may not remember writing some of the ideas, but I always seem to regret having not spent an extra 20 or 30 minutes before I go to bed, at least quickly jotting down something into my little evil DM journal, which is a video on its own I should talk about. Maybe it's just something about being more creative when I'm nearly ready to pass out and experience those things in my head, but I filled out pages and pages of these ideas, from video game items that are duplicated into Dungeons & Dragons to small dungeons I've been wanting to run really for a long time now, to monsters that I swear I have never seen in any of the monster manuals I've pored over. And 3.5 Dungeons & Dragons has like 6 or 7 or so. I've even put in some templates for encounter ideas, like the second to final encounter with Sephiroth in Final Fantasy VII, where Cloud is jumping up these platforms with progressively harder fights. One of my favorite creations that I made while in a state of wobbling in my chair from sleep exhaustion is something called the Grey Caves, this dwarf-made tunnel-turned fortress that had been overtaken by gnolls led by a drow in disguise. The drow trained several of the gnolls to be wyvern riders, and was planning to use their combined forces in spell casting in order to destroy a local kingdom and enslave members of their army to recruit into the drow's actual big bad in-boss's army. A Death Knight under the command of the Demon Lord of Undead Orcus. Yeah, sure, the big bad boss was cliche, but I just really loved this dungeon. It wasn't made for a specific party in mind, it was just an idea I had in my head. While the entry in my book is riddled with grammatical errors, and a lot of this math still needs to be corrected, for something I pounded out in a half-sleep daze, it's pretty freaking sweet. I need to find a group to put this through, or maybe even convert it to 5th edition to see how it compare. Hell, maybe if I do, I'll come back to my D&D stories and be able to tell you all about it. Well, thank you all for listening to me ramble about more exploits and happenings with my Dungeons & Dragons games? What are some of your stories of when the ever-dreadful sleep has nearly ruined a game or maybe enhanced it in some way? Could be anything. Leave your stories in the comments below. And hey, if you want to hear something specific in the next D&D stories, leave your ideas down there too. I would enjoy hearing input from my viewers. And hey, I have other D&D related content on my channel. Several Let's Plays to be exact, which will be on the title cards at the end of this video. Like, comment, subscribe, share this video, it all helps out the channel in some way. I also have a Patreon where you can become a patron and get a shout out at the end of my Let's Plays and D&D videos. The more I earn, maybe the more of these videos I can produce. Regardless, thank you all for watching and listening, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Cheers.